just as a reminder of what it is we're doing here right now, our church mission is to know God more and to make him known to more people. To know God more and to make him known to more people. And that just really came out of a prayer time, a cry of my heart. Then it bled over into the way our elders at our elder meetings were praying, and our staff, and little by little it started rippling over into the rest of our church. And that's our goal. Even as we come here to this time where we hear a sermon, our goal in this is twofold: to know God more and to make him known to more people. And I just think that's so important. As we're here today, we're in this barn-type building that's like 100 years old. And the camp shared with me a picture from like the 1960s, I think it was, with a camp meeting going on here. And it's a black and white photo from like a newspaper. And this place was jam-packed, not just to the wall here, but all the way to the other side of that, the area that nobody uses anymore. Just jam-packed with people. This place is called the A.W. Tozer Tabernacle. And A.W. Tozer was a famous pastor and author. In his book, The Knowledge of the Holy, he starts it out this way by saying, when you hear the word God, the first thing that comes to mind is the most important thing about you. You got that? When you hear the word God, the first thing that comes to mind is the most important thing about you. And what did he mean by that? He meant that we tend to grab a hold of God and craft him into our own image, the way we think about him, and not the way he is actually taught in Scripture. The Bible is God speaking to men and women and saying, this is who I am, this is who you are, and these are the things I'm about. So, check this out. This isn't our main text. We're going to be in Luke 6 today, but just look at this. When we look at John chapter 1, these words here, in the beginning was the Word. That's a reference to Jesus Christ. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. How Trinitarian, right there. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him, not anything made was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. You look at that, and that's literally saying that Jesus Christ isn't just a good teacher. He's not just a historical fixture. That he is, in fact, God, and all of this creation around us is created by him, for him, and through him, as Paul says in Colossians. That's incredible. He is the creator. You drop down in John chapter 1, verse 14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. Glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of truth and grace. Verse 16, for from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Why am I prefacing this teaching today with this? Well, we want to know God more. Not how we have created him in our own minds, not how maybe sometimes we have heard it taught falsely, but who is Jesus Christ exactly? Who is he? And in us knowing him more, having the opportunity to make him known to more people in a fullness of truth and grace, as John talks about. Truth and grace, we tend to put those two things at odds against each other. If you watch most people, most families, most churches, most institutions, they're about one or the other. So you get people that are all about truth, but they have no grace in the way they communicate, in the way they operate. They are just like a hammer. Or you get people that are all about grace, and they might be really friendly and bubbly, winsome, gregarious, all these great words I looked up in my thesaurus. But They're not going to tell you the truth about the condition of things. Check it out. Jesus came in a fullness of both, and not some muddy mix in the middle. Not 50% truth, 50% grace, but 100% gracious truth all at the same time. And so as we look at his teachings, note this. This is the word of God. These are his words and his teachings. As we are in Luke chapter 6 today, Jesus, after spending an entire night in prayer, came down the mountain. He had his 12 apostles with him. There was a crowd so large that Luke calls it a multitude, meaning this, it couldn't be counted. It couldn't be counted. And amongst that group was a smaller group of people who were his disciples, the ones who have said, we'll follow you. We want to learn from you. We want to be yours. And that's where we are at this point. There's a massive group of people around him, but he is preaching and teaching to those who said, we're following you. And he says this, Luke 6:27. But I say to you who hear, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who begs from you. And from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back. And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. Stop there. There's one more paragraph we're going to look at, but let's just look at that for a second. Isn't that beautiful? You look at this, and this is the kind of thing that like people would post, people would write different places. It's beautiful. And yet, for the disciple of Christ, it seems impossible. This is not the way I live my life. This isn't the way I live my life. What's Jesus doing here? I mean, to say, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you? I don't have a tendency to love my enemies. I tend to sort of not want to hang out, not want to talk to my enemies. That's how we are. Think about what's going on in the world, and that's the way we operate, and we applaud it. I mean, just let these words sink in, okay? As I talk about this, this is so opposite of the way mankind operates. If one country attacks another country, we expect there to be a retaliation against that one. And it goes back and forth, escalating. We can look at it overseas when it's in other countries and say, that's bad. Oh, but when someone attacks our men, when someone attacks one of our embassies, if there happened to be an attack on our soil, the giant of America wakes up, and we will crush them into orange goo. You look at this, and that's so backwards from what we think is right. But Jesus is saying, that's your enemy? Love them. Show them love. And don't hate them. And the rest of this, he begins to describe what that actually looks like to love your enemy. And this is how backwards it is. Bless those who curse you. That word bless is a different word than what we talked about last week. Last week, we looked at this passage and we saw the blessings and woes. Beatitudes, if you will. It's you're blessed if you are poor, you're blessed if you're meek or you're humble. There's spiritual blessings. There's a future for you. That's not this word. This word in Greek, bless, this time means to speak praise upon somebody. Okay. So when I love my enemy, I'm supposed to do what? speak praise on them while they are at the same time cursing me. Like, that's backwards. I don't know about you, but when someone's cursing me, my reaction isn't to be like, man, I just love you. You're just such a great person. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest, okay? Here's me. I have a tendency, let's just say this, and these people aren't even my enemy. They just irritate me. But if somebody cuts me off or is honking at me or cursing me when I'm driving, there was a time I used to give gestures that we shouldn't give to people. So I thought, I'll start being nice. And I blow kisses to people. Am I doing that to be like, bless you? No, let's be honest, I do it to irritate them, right? And they're like, what's that? Did he just blow a kiss at me? But literally, Jesus is saying to your enemy who is cursing you, and that could be taken as a spiritual curse, a pox on your house, or it could be they're just cursing you out. That if you are going to love them the way Christ loves, that instead we don't retaliate with more cursing. We don't even just go silent. We use our mouths to put praise upon them. And the next line, to pray for those who abuse us. That's backwards. 29 again, to the one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. Anyone ever done that? That's not natural for us. For most of us here, if we get struck on the cheek, we're going to cry lawsuit. We're going to be like, I have my rights, and I have rights not to be struck in the face. For some of us here, you conceal carry, and you're going to pull on them. But Jesus is like, no. They hit you on this side, offer your other cheek as well. And if they steal your cloak, give them your tunic as well. We are a type of family that has typically an organized garage. My wife is one of those people that, for fun, will organize the garage. And it's the wonderful thing, though, is we can park both of our cars in the garage. Right now, we are storing some stuff for one of our daughters, and I can't put my car in the garage. So my car is now parked out front, which means this: I get anxiety sometimes at night wondering if it's going to get broken into. The other night, the dog was barking, and I knew it was probably just a raccoon, but then my mind shifted, and I was like, what if someone's breaking in my car? And my thought was, if I go out there and someone is breaking into my car and stealing something in it, oh man, I am going to jump on them. I'm going to bite their kneecaps. I'm going to pummel them. But according to Jesus' teaching, to be like him, to be like his disciple, when I go out and I yell at them, hey, what are you doing? And they go running down the street, I should be saying, come back, you forgot the stereo and the speakers. Take those as well. Does that drive it home a little bit more for us? And give to everyone who begs from you? And from one who takes away your goods, do not demand them back? And as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. That verse 31 is a teaching that's very common in different philosophies and different religions. In fact, people had said things similar to this before Jesus did. Confucius said it in the negative form. Don't do to people what you don't want done to you, which sounds great. I mean, that's very libertarian of him. That idea is, I don't want you to do this to me, so I won't do it to you. Let's just stay away from each other. You go to your corner, I'll go to my corner, and we'll just live our lives in freedom away from each other. But Jesus turns it around into the positive. Do to others what you want them to do. So, like when you're out there doing something and you're thinking, man, I wish someone would help me with this right now. It'd be so awesome to have help. And later you see someone at the same need, go help them. I look at this and this is incredible teaching. And what is Jesus saying with this? He's telling us exactly who he is, how he lives his life, how he lives his life, how he treats people in his ministry day in and day out. And as we go through Luke, or if you go through Matthew, Mark, or John, you're going to see it over and over and over again. The way he treats people, the way he interacts with people, it's the opposite of the way we do. And it's beautiful. Within our English language, we have one word for love. What is it? That was low-hanging fruit right there, right? Yeah. Love. Right. In Greek, there were 4 different words for love. 2 of them were talked about very commonly in Koine Greek. They were developed, and we can understand those. One word that they used very commonly in Greek for love was the word eros. It's an erotic love. It's the type of love that when I look at my wife and I say, eros. And some of you are like, did he just say that? Yes. It is a romantic, passionate love. It is the dating love. It is why we have shows like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, I Love Lucy. It's these romantic things with each other. The other type of love is phileo. It's a brotherly love. Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love. It's the love that we have for each other when we look at things and in this room, if I said, how about them Ducks? There would be several of you, a lot of you that would be like, I like this pastor, right? Because we love the Ducks. But if I look at you and I say, aren't the Beavers the best? Oh, some of you cheered. Here's the deal. If you're up here and you cheered that way, don't go back over there, because you will get pummeled, all right? It's this thing where we have something in common with somebody else, so we just sort of, we get along with them and we love them, a brotherly love. As Christians looked at the love of Jesus Christ, they knew that neither of those fit. So what they did is they took another word called agape, a word that wasn't used much in just the common Koine Greek language at the time, and the thoughts behind it weren't developed, and they said, agape we will use to describe the love of Christ. It is an unconditional love. It is the point where love meets grace, and they come together in a way that is absolutely beautiful and absolutely doesn't make much sense to us. Because it's so different than the way our culture says to operate. So different than the greed and the jealousy and the self-focused nature that we have within us. It's where love meets grace, and Jesus says, I want you to love. I want you to agape. I want you to look at your enemies and unconditionally love them. It doesn't matter what they do to you. It doesn't matter what they say to you. You're going to go out and you're going to love them because that's how I love them. As this passage goes on, it says, if you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what benefit is that to you? for even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to get back the same amount. But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you will be the sons and daughters of the Most High. For he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. Okay, do me a favor right now. Think of the person that you love most. The person that today, if I were to say, if you could spend the rest of the day with anybody else, and I mean someone who's living, some of you will instantly go somewhere else, but if you could spend the rest of the day with maybe it's a best friend, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's somebody, who would that person be? Don't say it out loud, just think it. That's like really easy to do. I say that and I'm like, man, I wish I could spend it with this person. The reason I said someone living is whenever I ask questions like that in our small group, all of them say Jesus at the same time. I mean, like, I'm saying right now, someone like, you hang out with, your best friend. Easy. But think about this. He's literally saying everybody does that. It's easy for us to love somebody that we like and someone that treats us well. I like hanging out with people that treat me well. But Jesus' point is everybody does that. But God is so merciful that he blesses both the good and the evil, the righteous and the unrighteous, those who speak well of him and those who mock him. It is called common grace, a grace where God allows it to bring rain on both the righteous and the unrighteous, the sun on the righteous and the unrighteous. Man. And Jesus is saying to us, I'm inviting you to do the same. I'm inviting you to do the same. This is how the Father treats us. He's telling his disciples over the next 3 years, as you follow me and you hear my teaching, I am going to treat everybody around me this way. And I am inviting you to be my disciple and do the things I do. What an incredible invitation. It's an incredible invitation to be just like him. Now I look at this and I'm like, wow. In my mind, I can think of so many examples of what not to do in these areas. What not to do. So I made a point. This last Monday on a walk, I sent myself a text message. And it basically said, Tim Davis, give the positive examples. The times where we see disciples of Jesus actually live this out. And man, this week has been awesome just thinking through this. What are the stories that I've heard, the people I've seen who have lived just like Jesus Christ in here, who has turned everything upside down, love meets grace, who has just lived and heard that invitation and said, Lord, I hear that, I'm going to live like that, I'm going to do that in this situation, and flip the script up on end? The first story that came to mind is found in Acts. It's a story of a man who's a Jewish man. Grew up hating people that weren't Jewish, being subject to Gentiles. When it came to his faith, he was Jewish. He followed one God, the one true God, and everybody else were pagans, worshiping multiple gods. Politically, they were in control, and his people were subjugated. And he was taught to disregard them because of their race, their beliefs, even the things they ate. But one day, when Peter was sunbathing on a roof, God spoke to him in a vision and let him know, look, I've made all of the food. What I call clean, don't call unclean. And then as he's there, some of those people showed up. Gentiles, filthy dogs in his mind. But they said they wanted to know God more. They wanted to know Jesus Christ. And so Peter said, all right, I want you to know him too. And Peter went to them. He went to them. He didn't simply say, well, if you really want to know that, we're having a church service at this time, and even though you all live in a different city, bring everybody here, and you can come early. You're going to need to get seats, and, come and join us. Just sit in the back, kind of be quiet. No. Peter broke step with what he had always known and what he had learned his whole life, and he went to people that were other. Those people he shouldn't have been around. And he shared the gospel with them. And on that day, a Roman and all of his household were saved. He loved his enemy. Have you heard of Polycarp? Polycarp. Wouldn't that be a good name for a grandson? Polycarp. Polycarp was a disciple of the Apostle John. He was taught by John. Polycarp became the bishop of the church of Smyrna. Bishop, it literally is just pastor. He becomes the pastor of the church that's in the city of Smyrna, which is in present-day Turkey. Polycarp, at the age of 85 or 86, after pastoring that church for decades, persecution broke out. Polycarp was hiding in the countryside in a home. The people who were persecuting the Christians found 2 Christian boys and tortured them until they gave up the location of where Polycarp was. And so, one evening, a whole bunch of guards from the city went out. They surrounded the place where Polycarp was. And you know what he did? He called for food to be made, and he invited them in, and he made them dinner. These are the people who are going to take him away and try to burn him at the stake. But when they came, he said, hey, come on in. Let's do this. I'll make you dinner, and while you guys all eat, can I just pray over here? I'm going to stand over here and pray. Take about an hour. They were there for 2 hours. This 85 or 86-year-old man praying in the corner as they ate the food that he had prepared for them. And they started having second thoughts, saying like, wait, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we here to arrest this man? But their orders ruled out. They arrested Polycarp. They took him to the city. They gave him a couple different chances to deny Christ. And he said, for all of these years, he's never done me wrong. How can I do wrong to him now? They tied him up. They lit the fire. And he wouldn't burn. He wouldn't burn. He was in the fire for a long time, and he wouldn't burn until finally they pulled him out and killed him with a dagger. On that day, he knew they were going to kill him. He knew that he was going to die at their hands. He knew that they had already tortured 2 young Christian boys. and he made them dinner. In the moment, they almost caved. Groupthink took over, though, but I wonder what happened in private with them over the years. What happened in private with them over the years? Corrie ten Boom was a young lady who, because her family was hiding Jews in Germany during World War II, they got arrested and put into concentration camps. Corrie ten Boom heard the invitation to be a disciple of Jesus Christ and to live for him. She made it through the concentration camps. And as an elderly lady, went back to Germany to share her testimony and to evangelize people. And there was one night when she was doing a teaching on forgiveness. Forgiveness. On how, because God has forgiven us, therefore we need to forgive other people. And at the end of it, a man walked forward that she recognized that quickly as one of the guards who tortured her in a concentration camp. One of the guards who killed her sister. And he walked up to her and he said, "I found Christ. I'm a Christian now." And for the last several years, I have wanted to come face to face with somebody that I guarded, someone I had done wrong to, and ask for forgiveness. Will you forgive me? And he put his hand out. What would you do? What would your friends tell you to do in that circumstance? In her own words, Corrie ten Boom said that she knew in that moment that she did not have the emotional capacity to put her hand out there and shake this man's hand and forgive him. But she knew also that forgiveness is not an emotion. And so she prayed. And she said it was like electricity was moving through her arm from her shoulder down as she went to shake this man's hand. In another testimony, she said it was the love of Christ pouring through her arm to him. And she forgave a Nazi guard who killed her sister. She said it was not me, it was the love of Jesus Christ. That's the kind of love that we're invited into. Just on Friday, I think it was Friday. Doesn't matter. Friday, Saturday, Thursday. I'm over 50, so I get to be confused about that kind of stuff now. I watch online the memorial service for the best theologian I ever had the chance to sit under. Man, when I was at an incredibly dry point in my life, he made the gospel real to me again. He was a crazy professor, kind of an absent-minded professor. And somebody got up and shared a testimony there, and I'm like, yeah, that's totally him. There was a man who got up, and he said, "My name is Duncan, and I had David Needham as a professor, but he never got my name right, and he always called me Dwayne." He said the first few times in class he called me Dwayne, I corrected him and said Duncan, but eventually I just gave up and decided, well, in the Bible people had their names changed, so maybe that's what's happening to me. Professor Needham was an interesting professor because he didn't make you take tests under proctors. He didn't make you take them in the library with people watching you or in his class where he could see. He would say, hey, I trust you. I trust you that you're going to not use your notes and not open your book with this. And Duncan shared the story of how one day he was supposed to take a test, closed book, no notes, and he was in the library, and he looked at the test and realized almost the entire test was on a chart he didn't study. So what did he do? He opened his textbook, and he just copied everything right there. And he turned in his midterm and went on his way. Needham was an interesting professor because he not only taught, but he would let you get appointments to have coffee with him and to sit at lunch with him and to interact. And he would say, you can ask whatever question you want. I always have the right to say, I don't know. And over the next couple of weeks, Duncan was in class with him. What's his name? Was in class with him, had times of coffee with him. And every time, just Professor Needham, with just his sweet spirit and his excitement about God, would try to talk to him. And Duncan said he just felt miserable. He felt miserable. He cheated. He broke trust. And he knew that he had done that, and the guilt was eating him alive. And after a few weeks, Professor Needham looked at him and just said, Dwayne, there's something between us. Something has happened. We're not in the same place relationally anymore. What is going on? And this man, Duncan, said, well, I cheated on the midterm. I cheated, and I'm sorry. It's eating me alive. I feel guilty. I feel ashamed. I know that you'll at least have to give me an F on that test. If not, put me on academic suspension or kick me out. And I'll take whatever's coming, but I am sorry that I did that. What would one of your professors have done? Needham said, Dwayne, the last few weeks must have been miserable for you. They must have been miserable for you, and I can see this has been eating you up. He said, Dwayne, you've suffered enough. Thank you for admitting that. Thank you. And he said, but I haven't even seen your test in here. He said, that's my test right on top. And Needham looked at it and said, no, that's Duncan's test. He said, no, my name's actually Duncan. He said, you go by both names? I said, no, you've just gotten it wrong. And he apologized. But Needham said, Duncan, you've suffered enough. Here's a blank test. Go try again. That is mercy and grace on somebody. And why am I taking the time to tell that story? Because the previous three are people in the past. This is somebody that I knew, and that is the way this man lived his life, with a love, a mercy, a grace that gave people an example of who Jesus Christ was. And we are invited today to live like that in this culture. What does the world need today? A new president? A new government? A new financial system? A clean slate? No. No. What the world needs today is for people to say, Lord, I'm not just going to follow you with my words. I am going to live like you, and in doing so, transform this world with the love of Jesus Christ.